The hidden door asterisk. Raylan had never been this deep into alien territory before. He was just a human technician, sent to fix a failing power core on the moon colony of Elvarus. The moon was owned by the Thalari, an ancient alien race known for their rituals, secrets, and strict rules. Humans were allowed to help with technology, but only in assigned zones. Raylan knew that, but he also knew something was wrong with the energy readings. They were coming from a section marked Forbiddance in red alien glyphs. The corridors in this part of the temple were darker, strange. Humming sounds echoed through the stone walls. Blue lights pulsed under his boots as he walked. The deeper he went, the colder the air became. His breath started to fog, and the metal in his tools began to vibrate slightly. He reached a dead end, but his scanner still pointed forward. That made no sense. He looked at the wall and touched it. The glyphs glowed softly, as if reacting to his presence. Suddenly, the wall shifted. It wasn't a wall at all, it was a hidden door. A soft hiss escaped as it slid open, revealing a chamber beyond. The air inside smelled of dust, old stone, and something sweet like burned flowers. He should have called command, but curiosity pulled him in. He stepped inside. The room was large and round, with ancient carvings on every surface. Symbols danced slowly across the floor, glowing gold and blue. In the center stood a raised platform, surrounded by 6 curved pillars. Floating above it was a sphere of light, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. Raylan took another step, and the door behind him slammed shut. He turned fast, panic rising in his chest. He banged on the door, but it didn't open. Suddenly, a low hum filled the room, and the carvings began to move. The floating sphere brightened, casting long shadows. Shapes appeared around the room, stepping from behind the pillars. They wore dark robes, and their faces were covered in metallic masks. Thalari elders, at least 10 of them. One stepped forward, taller than the rest, her voice smooth and cold. "You should not be here, human," she said. I didn't mean to," Raylan stammered, holding up his tools. "I was tracking a power surge, I thought." "You have entered the chamber of binding," she interrupted. "This place has been sealed for 400 cycles." Raylan didn't understand what that meant, but something told him he wasn't just in trouble. He was in danger. The elders began to chant, and the room started to spin. Symbols from the walls lifted into the air and circled around him. He screamed as a sharp pain shot through his head. Images flooded his mind. Alien symbols, battlefields, a queen with burning eyes. He dropped to his knees, clutching his skull. Then suddenly it stopped. Everything went quiet. The elders stared at him, shocked. One of them whispered, "The binding has accepted him." The tall elder stepped forward again, removing her mask. Her face was alien but not cruel, her eyes deep silver, glowing slightly. "My name is Viara," she said softly. "You are now part of a ritual we do not understand, and cannot stop." Raylan shook his head, dizzy and afraid. "What did you do to me?" he asked, voice weak. "You triggered the ritual of memory," Viara explained. "It was meant only for those of the royal bloodline, but it chose you." "I'm just a technician," he said, trembling. "I don't belong here." Viara knelt in front of him, her voice serious. "Now you do," behind her. The elders argued in their own language. Some were angry, others fearful. One pointed at Raylan and shouted. Viara stood and raised a hand, silencing them all. "He cannot leave," she said. "If he does, the ritual will collapse and he will die." Raylan looked around, searching for a way out. There was none. The chamber was alive now, glowing with energy. Something inside him had changed. He could feel it like a second heartbeat, like whispers in the back of his mind. "You are the first human ever to touch the binding," Viara said. "Fate has chosen you, even if you did not choose it." Raylan sat on the cold floor, trying to understand what was happening. Outside, the stars of the galaxy spun silently. Inside the temple, an ancient force had awakened, and it had taken him as its vessel. The blood memory. Raylan hadn't slept. He sat inside the stone chamber, his back against the glowing wall, his hands still shaking. The voices in his head hadn't stopped, not loud, but constant, like whispers from a place just beyond hearing. They weren't in English, but somehow he understood them. They spoke of memories, of loss, of blood spilled for honor. He was trapped in a place older than any human had seen, and something ancient now lived inside him. Vayara entered silently, her robe brushing the stone floor. She carried a small bowl filled with shimmering liquid, thick and blue like melted glass. "You must drink this," she said, offering it to him. "What is it?" he asked, not moving. "A gift," she replied, "and a curse if you reject it." He looked into the bowl, saw shapes swirling inside, faces and symbols flickering like smoke. His throat was dry, and his mind burned with confusion. Without thinking too much, he took the bowl and drank. It was cold, then hot, then freezing. It slid down his throat like ice and fire at the same time. His vision blurred, and then it hit him hard. Raylan's body went rigid. He saw not with his eyes, but with 1,000 others. He stood on a battlefield under twin moons, swords clashing, energy crackling in the sky. He felt rage, grief, and purpose not his own. Then he was in a palace, standing before a queen with long white tendrils for hair, her gaze fierce yet kind. She placed a hand on his chest and whispered, in a strange language. Then darkness. Raylan gasped as he came back, falling forward onto the floor. His hands now glowed faintly. Alien glyphs burned into his skin like tattoos made of light. He tried to rub them off, but they wouldn't fade. They were part of him now. Vayara knelt beside him, watching carefully. "You have been marked," she said. "You now carry blood memory." "I saw war," Raylan whispered. "I felt everything. Pain, fear, loyalty." "You felt the history of the Theliori," she said. "The ritual you entered was forbidden because it carries all our past, our sins and our glory, into a new vessel." "I don't want this," Raylan said, trying to stand, but his legs were weak. "I didn't ask for this." Vayara looked away for a moment, then said softly, "No one ever does." She guided him to a quiet chamber, smaller, with walls made of smooth crystal. A glowing table stood at the center, surrounded by symbols written in circles. "This is the memory codex," she said. "It will help you understand what you carry." Raylan touched the surface, and the air around him shimmered. A figure formed above the table, semi-transparent, tall and elegant. It was her, the queen. From his vision, she looked at him with eyes that seemed alive, even though she was not real. "Who are you?" Raylan asked, staring at the projection. "I am Saraleth," the image said. "Last queen of the Thalari. She died 1,000 years ago," Vayara explained. "But her essence was preserved in the binding." "Why me?" Raylan asked again, voice low and rough. "I'm not Thalari. I'm not royal. I'm not anyone special. The binding doesn't choose by blood," Saraleth said through the glowing light. "It chooses by strength of heart, by purity of intent." Raylan backed away, shaking his head. "I'm just a tech guy," he said. "I fix broken wires and engines. I'm not a chosen one." But even as he spoke, the glyphs on his skin pulsed gently, as if answering him. The codex dimmed, and the queen's figure faded away. Vayara stepped closer, serious now. "You must listen," she said. "You cannot return to the outside world, not yet." Raylan clenched his fists, frustrated. "Why? Because of your rules?" He snapped. "No," she replied. "Because if you leave now, the ritual will collapse, and your body will reject the memory. It will destroy you from the inside." Raylan looked down at his glowing hands, then at the door behind her. He was alone in this. No one from Earth would understand. No one could come for him. Not now. "Then what do I do?" he asked, defeated. "Sit here and wait to become your ancient memory box?" Vayara placed a hand on his shoulder. "You must complete the rite," she said. "There are 6 phases, each deeper than the last." "And if I fail?" Raylan asked. "You won't fail," she said quietly. "Because if you do, we all die with you." The lights around the chamber dimmed, and the air grew heavy. Raylan looked toward the codex again, where the queen's form had disappeared. He knew this was just the beginning. His body was no longer just his. Something ancient had awakened inside him, and it was hungry for purpose. The oath that binds, Raylan stood in front of the great circle, his heart beating louder than the drums echoing through the stone halls. He had been in the temple for 3 cycles now, or what the Thal Ari called days. Time felt strange here. Thick and slow like honey. His body had changed, subtly but surely. He didn't just feel the whispers anymore. He sometimes knew things before they happened. When he touched the walls, they responded. When he closed his eyes, he saw shadows. Of a world long gone, now he stood in the middle of the council chamber. A circular room with open skylights and a floor made of living stone. 12 Thalari elders sat above him on arched thrones, their faces half lit by soft orange fire. Vayara stood at his side, silent, respectful, but firm. She had told him what was coming, but he hadn't believed it until now. The eldest of the council, an alien named Othran, with cracked silver horns, spoke first. The ritual has claimed him, yet he is not one of us. He is now, Vayara replied calmly. He bears the mark and survived the memory rite. Many of our kind did not. Another counselor hissed. And he is just human. Raylan took a deep breath, stepping forward. I didn't ask for this, he said loudly. But it happened. And I'm not here to destroy anything. Your presence has already changed the binding. Othran said, it adapts to you, shapes to your mind, bends around your emotions. Then maybe that's why I was chosen, Raylan said, voice stronger now. I didn't plan this. But I'm not running either. The room fell silent. Then Vayara moved to the center, lifting a small blade made of clear crystal. This is the blade of oaths, she said. It binds the speaker to truth. If he lies, the blade will burn. She handed it to Raylan, and he hesitated. The blade hummed in his palm, glowing faint blue. He looked up at the council, then down at the symbol still glowing on his skin. He gritted his teeth and raised the blade. I swear, he said, slowly, that I will finish the rite, not for power, not for glory, but to restore what your people lost. The blade pulsed, brighter now, and then faded. No burn, no pain, just silence. A soft wind passed through the chamber. One elder whispered, the oath has been accepted. Othran's eyes narrowed, but he didn't speak. Instead, he stood and raised both arms. Then let him begin the next phase, he said. Let him enter the Veil of Ancients. Raylan turned to Vayara, confused. The what? She didn't smile, but her eyes softened. The Veil is a mind realm, she said. A place between the living and the dead. Wait, what? Raylan blinked. Like a vision? No, she said, like a crossing. Before he could ask more, the floor under him shifted, the stone folding like liquid. He gasped as the chamber faded, replaced by darkness filled with stars. He was no longer standing, he was floating. A cold wind rushed past his ears. Though there was no air, the stars twisted, forming a pathway of light. In the distance, he saw towers floating upside down, and alien beings walking backward through time. He saw memories that weren't his children playing in golden fields, a dying king giving his final breath, a starship exploding in silence. Where am I? Raylan whispered. A voice answered, not Vayara, not anyone from the temple. It was Saraleth. You are in the Veil, young one, she said, her voice echoing in every direction. Here lies the truth of our people, and the burden of our past. Raylan saw her form ahead, glowing, larger than before, her hair like flowing mist. She reached out a hand, and he floated closer. You carry the thread now, she said, but you must decide what to weave. I don't understand, Raylan said, overwhelmed. You are human, yes, she said, but inside you is something more now, something shaped by memory and will. She pointed down, and Raylan saw earth blue, small, spinning silently. Then he saw Elvarus beside it, cracked with ancient wounds, glowing with magic and sorrow. You stand between both worlds. Saralith said. "You must choose who you are, and who you will become." As she spoke, the stars began to break like glass. Pieces of the realm shattered around him, pulled into a swirl of golden wind. Raylan screamed as he was pulled with them, his body stretched, mind splitting between memories not his own. Then suddenly he was back. The chamber returned around him, the blade still in his hand. The elders leaned forward, watching closely. "What was that?" Raylan asked, panting. "The beginning of the bond," Vayara said, helping him up. "You've now seen what waits beyond what calls to you." Raylan looked at his reflection in the crystal floor. His eyes glowed faintly now, not blue, not gold, but both. He was no longer just human, and whatever came next he would have to face it as something in between, between the realms. Raylan opened his eyes and didn't recognize the world around him. He stood in a forest made of silver. Trees, their leaves floating without wind, never touching the ground. The sky above was not sky, it was a sea rolling in calm, filled with glowing creatures that swam slowly across the clouds. His feet didn't touch soil, but hovered gently above a soft surface of light. This place had no sound, no time, and no temperature. It simply existed. He tried to speak, but no voice came. Tried to move, but his body wasn't obeying in the way it used to. He wasn't sure if he was dreaming, dying, or something else entirely. Then she appeared, Saralith. Not a vision, not a flicker this time. She stood before him fully formed, her robes of starlight flowing behind her. Her face was calm, ancient, and filled with pain she no longer tried to hide. She held out her hand, and this time, Raylan didn't hesitate. He took it. "You have crossed fully into the mind realm," she said without moving her lips. "Few survive this far. Why me?" Raylan thought, though the question didn't need a voice. "I'm not strong, not trained." "You are human," she replied, "and that makes you something we could never be. Unpredictable, adaptable, alive in ways we lost." They walked together through the forest. Though there was no ground beneath them, shapes moved around them, spirits of warriors, children laughing, a mother singing to her dying child. Memories made flesh, emotion turned to form. Raylan stopped as he saw a scene play out in front of him. An alien girl hiding from fire, her parents shielding her with their bodies. It was too real. He felt her fear as if it were his own. He turned away, his chest heavy. "This place is not for comfort," Saralith said gently. "It is for understanding." She brought him to a lake that shimmered like a mirror. "In this realm, you will face your own truth," she said. "Not the truth of history, but the truth of self." Raylan looked into the water and saw himself, not the technician from Earth, not the frightened man from the temple. He saw a version of himself wearing robes like the Thalari, standing tall, his hands glowing with power. Then it shifted. He saw another version, lying dead in the temple, the ritual broken, the chamber destroyed. He stepped back, heart pounding. "I don't want this responsibility," he thought. "I never asked to carry your people's future." "No one ever does," Saralith said again, echoing Vayara's words. "But you were chosen, because you still feel." Thunder rolled overhead, though there were no clouds. The lake began to swirl, and the memories around them grew louder. Voices screaming, shouting, begging. The mind realm was turning, testing him. Suddenly, Saralith faded, her form dissolving into sparks. Raylan was alone, and the ground cracked beneath his feet. From below, shadows rose, figures of himself, twisted, angry, broken. One step forward, eyes hollow, voice sharp. "You're not strong enough," it said. "You'll fail them all." Another followed, whispering, "You should have stayed home. Should have walked away from that door." Raylan backed up until there was nowhere else to go. Then he remembered Saralith's words. "This is not for comfort." He closed his eyes, let the fear come, let the guilt hit him like cold rain. He accepted it, not as weakness, but as truth. When he opened his eyes, the shadows were gone, the lake was calm again, and the silver forest had returned. Saralith stood nearby, watching. "You have passed through the first fire," she said. There are others still. But now you know who you are. Raylan nodded slowly. I'm not a hero, he said softly. I'm just someone trying to do what's right. And that, she replied, is what heroes truly are. A portal opened behind her, shaped like a ring of golden fire. You must return now, she said. The council waits, and not all of them are patient. Raylan looked back one last time at the forest, the lake, the sky filled with swimming stars. Then he stepped through. The fire wrapped around him like a warm breath. Pulling him back into his body, he awoke gasping. Lying in the crystal chamber, Vayara was there, along with several council guards. She looked relieved but guarded. You were gone for longer than expected, she said. Many feared you would not return. Raylan sat up slowly, his hands still glowing but now steadier, more controlled. I saw things, he said. I faced myself. Then you are ready, Vayara said, nodding once. Because the next phase will not test your heart, it will test your loyalty. Raylan didn't speak, but he felt it deep down. Something inside him had changed again. He wasn't between the realms anymore. He was the bridge. The betrayal below. Raylan walked through the temple halls like a ghost among the living. Every step echoed louder than it should. Every Thalari eye followed him with fear or worse. Envy. He had survived the mind realm, returned from the veil, and now carried parts of Sorala's soul within him. But power, even when unasked for, draws enemies. And someone in the temple wanted him dead. Vayara had grown silent in recent days. She no longer walked beside him like a guide, but behind him like a guard. Something had shifted in the air, not just around her, but everywhere. The elders no longer spoke openly, and the chants that once hummed through the temple halls had stopped. It felt like the walls were holding their breath. Raylan entered the chamber of reflection, a quiet place with mirrored water and soft light. He sat beside the pool, hoping for silence, for peace. Instead, he heard a whisper, not from the spirits. From the shadows, leave before it's too late. He stood quickly, scanning the room, but saw no one. The whisper returned, this time clearer. They will kill you before the final rite. A small figure stepped out from behind the pillar. It was a young Thalari acolyte. Barely past childhood, her name was Senvi, and her eyes were wide with fear. I saw it, she said, trembling. They planned to stop the ritual tonight, before the full merging. Raylan felt cold all over. Who? He asked. The High Circle, she said, and some of the guards. They fear what you might become. Raylan turned and ran. His footsteps pounding down the corridor, he burst into the inner temple, searching for Vayara, but she wasn't there. Instead, he found Counselor Othran, standing near a sacred flame, alone too alone. Looking for someone human? Othran asked, voice calm but sharp. I know what you're planning, Raylan said, keeping his distance. You want to end the ritual, to end me. Othran didn't deny it. Not out of hate, he said. Out of fear you are becoming something beyond any of us, and that frightens those sworn to protect balance. Raylan clenched his fists, the glyphs on his skin glowing with emotion. I didn't ask for this, he said, but I won't let you destroy it. You don't understand, Othran said, stepping forward. If the ritual completes, the binding will change forever. It will answer to you, not to the circle. Before Raylan could respond, movement flashed from the shadows, an ambush. 3 armored guards leapt at him with bladed staffs. Their weapons humming with energy. Raylan ducked, rolled, and touched the floor. Power surged through the stone, cracking it with a pulse of light. The shockwave knocked the attackers back, but more were coming. He ran through the hallways, the temple groaning around him as if alive. Doors sealed behind him, guided by unseen hands. The temple wasn't just protecting him, it was choosing him. He reached the heart chamber deep below the surface, a place forbidden even to most elders. The walls here were alive with pulsing veins of light, the floor shaped like a star. Vayara stood there, waiting, her expression grim. You knew, Raylan said, panting. She nodded slowly. They came to me too, asked me to turn against you. Why didn't you? He asked. Because I saw what the binding sees, she said, and it sees hope. Behind them, the guards arrived, led by Othran, weapons ready. This ends now, the elder growled. No, Raylan said, stepping onto the star-shaped floor. It begins now. He raised his hands, and the chamber responded. Light poured from the symbols on his body, filling the air with spirals of golden energy. The temple trembled as if awakening fully for the first time in centuries. The guards tried to charge, but the floor split open, sending them back. Vayara stood by Raylan's side. Unshaken. Complete it, she said. We'll hold them. Raylan closed his eyes and stepped into the final circle, around him. The spirits of the past appeared, not as whispers this time, but as warriors, scholars, children. They surrounded him in silent support, each one placing a hand upon his back without touching. He felt their pain, their strength, their history. Coursing through him, he was no longer just carrying their memories, he was their memory. The binding roared, and the chamber filled with blinding light. Othran screamed, "Stop him!" But it was too late. The ritual had begun its final phase, and Raylan was no longer running. He was becoming, the choice of the vessel. Raylan stood inside the circle of becoming. The chamber pulsed with golden light, each heartbeat of the temple. Now matched his own, the voices of the past dozens, hundreds. Thousands rose around him like a storm of memory. He wasn't scared anymore, but he wasn't calm either. He was something else, now something in between. His arms glowed from wrist to shoulder, the glyphs now burning white instead of blue. His thoughts drifted between moments, not just of his own life, but of others. He saw a mother losing her son in a war that happened 800 years ago. He saw an alien boy making the first tool out of crystal and stone. He saw Saraleth on her final day, walking into the chamber, knowing she would die, and choosing to be remembered instead. Vayara stood at the edge of the circle, her robe torn from the fight above. She had defended him while he entered this final stage. Now her voice was low, full of urgency. You must decide, Raylan. The ritual cannot complete without your will. From across the chamber, Saraleth appeared again, not as a projection this time, but as a being of energy. She was whole, her features glowing with memory and sadness. You are the vessel now, she said, but you must choose what I become through you. Raylan stepped toward her, each footstep creating a ripple across the light-covered floor. Why give me a choice? He asked. Wasn't this all decided by fate? Saraleth shook her head gently. Fate only opens the door, she said. You decide if it closes or stays open. Raylan looked around, saw the burning ruins of the temple far above. Through the cracked ceiling, he saw Thal-Ari guards wounded from battle, and young acolytes kneeling in fear. He saw the result of ancient power, unchecked, unbalanced, unquestioned. What are my choices? He asked, voice steady but low. Saraleth moved closer, her form flickering between herself and images of his own face. You can accept me fully, she said, and become the eternal heir, the one who will rule, unify, and carry our memory forever. Raylan's chest tightened. And the other? He asked. You can break the binding, she said, free all memories, end the ritual forever, but lose everything we built. Raylan closed his eyes. He felt the power pulling at him, offering comfort, strength, and purpose if he accepted. Saraleth, he would live forever not as Raylan, but as something greater. If he refused, he would lose this gift, maybe even his life, but the world would be free to choose again. The chamber shifted suddenly. Othran entered from behind the shadows. Bloodied but alive. You can't undo this, the elder shouted. You must merge with her. It is the law of the binding. No, Raylan said quietly. It was your law, not mine. He turned to Saraleth, meeting her glowing eyes. You sacrificed yourself to preserve your people, he said. But that cycle of sacrifice has to end somewhere. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then choose, she said, and let the universe feel it. Raylan reached into the center of the circle, where the heart of the temple floated a spinning orb of memory and flame. He placed both hands on it, and the entire chamber shook. Every voice around him cried out some begging, some cheering, some silent. He didn't take the power, he shattered it. The orb cracked, splitting into 1,000 shards of light. They flew out in all directions, into the sky, into the stars, into every corner of the Fallery legacy. The binding was broken, not destroyed but freed. Sarala smiled, just once. Before she faded completely, Vayara gasped as the circle dimmed and the glyphs vanished from Raylan's skin. He fell to his knees, exhausted, empty, and yet peaceful. Othran roared in rage, but the temple didn't respond to him anymore. The floor beneath the elder gave way, and light swallowed him whole. No screams, no flames, just silence. The temple calmed, like an animal finally resting after a long hunt. Vayara ran to Raylan's side, helping him stand. "You did it," she whispered. "No," he said with a weak smile. "We did it." Above them, the ceiling split open entirely, and sunlight poured in for the first time in centuries. Raylan looked up, breathing deeply. He wasn't a vessel anymore. He was simply a man changed, tested, and free. The heir of two worlds, *. The temple had fallen silent. No more chanting. No more energy pulsing through ancient stone. What was once a fortress of memory had become a resting place. Raylan stood at the top of the broken stairs, his hands empty, his skin bare, the glyphs now gone. He looked more human than he had in days, and yet, everyone who saw him knew he was no longer just a visitor from Earth. Around him, the Falari people gathered, not in fear this time but in silence, in awe. Even the youngest among them could feel it. Something had shifted in the universe, and the echo of that shift was walking before them in human form. Vayara stood beside him, her face tired, bruised, but filled with pride. "The binding is no more," she said softly, "but its heart remains with you." Raylan looked over the horizon, where the sky was clearing for the first time in years. Storms that had once raged non-stop were now breaking apart like old chains. The temple had held more than just memory. It had held pain, grief, and history in a prison made of tradition. Now it was free, and so were they. The council, what remained of it, stood before Raylan. Heads bowed. Othran was gone, lost in the collapse of power he tried to control. The others no longer questioned Raylan's place among them. He had not taken power, but he had earned something greater. Respect. Senvi, the young acolyte who once warned him of betrayal, stepped forward, holding a small crystal device. "This is what's left of the codex," she said, handing it to him. "It wants you to keep it, not as ruler but as witness." Raylan took it carefully, the crystal glowing faintly in his hand, not with power, but with peace. He stood before the people, unsure of what to say. He was never a leader, never a speaker, just a technician who fixed broken things. But maybe, in some strange way, he had fixed something bigger than he ever imagined. "I didn't come here to change anyone," he said, his voice echoing through the quiet crowd. "I came to fix a failing power core. I stumbled into a secret. I made mistakes. I got scared. But I kept going, because you trusted me, and because something inside me said it mattered." The Falari listened not as followers, but as equals. Vayara stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder. "This world owes you more than thanks," she said, "but you must choose. Will you stay, or will you return to the stars you came from?" Raylan looked up again at the alien sky, now clear and calm. His home, Earth, was far away, but still there. The binding had released him, but it had also left a mark no one could see. "I'll stay," he said after a long breath. "Not as your leader, not as your vessel, but as your friend." The crowd slowly bowed, not from tradition, but from choice. They bowed to a man who had walked into their deepest ritual by accident, and changed everything by choosing not to take power. Years later, stories would spread across both human and alien worlds. They would speak of the time a human entered the Forbidden's ritual, not to conquer, not to rule, but to understand and, through understanding, became a bridge between two worlds. He wasn't the chosen one. He wasn't the savior. He was Raylan, the man who said no when others would have said yes, and in doing so became something greater than legend. He became truth.